Hi everybody in Mr. Pine's Algebra 1 classes. I have given you in class a packet of questions to use as a study guide so you can practice for the upcoming test on Chapter 9 and Chapter 10. This is probably going to be more than one video because there are a number of problems I'm going to go through, but I'm going to work out solutions to a few of every type of problem here. So let's start right here with Lesson 9.1, and as you can see, I'm going to do two of them. I'm going to do number 3, and then I'm going to do number 5. Let's start with number 3 here. The first thing I suggested to everybody was that you make for yourself a list, or better yet, memorize 1 squared all the way through. I'd originally said 10 squared, but this is a challenging problem here. This goes beyond what you've memorized. You know that 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, all the way up to here 10 squared equals 100. But wait a minute, they're asking us beyond 100. They're asking us for 121. So hopefully this isn't too much of a stretch for you to also realize that 11 squared equals 121. Once you realize that, what you're going to end up doing is working backwards. That's how you find square roots. You take the square root of the number on the right side. So for example, the square root of 100 equals, erase that exponent, and the square root of 100 equals 10. Similarly, the square root of 121 equals 11. And so, what I really want you to give as an answer is plus or minus 11, and we've talked about that quite a bit in class. I'm going to get rid of this and walk through the right side now. I'm going to cover it up again, I guess. That'll make it a lot easier. Bear with me. And so, question 5. You're given negative 25. You're supposed to find the square root. That means you're taking the square root of negative 25. But we've talked in class, you cannot take the square root of a negative number. So the answer, I don't care whether you call it undefined or no roots, but you have to give me an answer like that. You cannot tell me something like 5 or negative 5. All right, next questions. Also still within Chapter 9.1. I'm going to do 2 again, question 9 and question 10. Start on the left with question 9. You're asked for the square root of 16. Well, you should have that list memorized. And again, I'm going to go back to the previous slide. It's okay with me if when you get the test, you write this out, but you cannot bring a sheet with you reminding you this. This is something that you have to know. So you have to know, for example, that 8 squared is 64, and that way you can figure out that the square root of 64 is 8. Or, for example, here you got to know that the square root of 16 is 4. And then tell me that the answer is plus or minus 4 and not just 4. All right, let's delete the right side now. And now you're asked for the negative square root of 64. This time the negative sign is on the outside of the square root. Well, PEMDAS says you do parens first. A square root sign works like parens, so you take the square root of 64 first. And that's 8, and I want you just to give me one answer when you have a question like this with negative on the outside. That's going to be negative 8. Again, I'm going to do 2 questions, 17, and I've changed this to 22 so that it would fit on screen, but 22 I thought was a more interesting question than 21. So we're going to do this one, 17, and I've written in the A, B, and C values for 22. Starting with 17. The basic setup is b squared minus 4a times c, and you fill in those parens with the numbers that you're given. You fill in the 5, the 1, and the negative 6. Make sure you put the 5 where b belongs here at the front. Don't get confused. So 5 squared, well, that's 25 minus 4 times 1, which is negative 4. Still got to do that times negative 6. Well, minus 4 times minus 6 is positive. Make sure you notice this. Minus 4 times minus 6 is positive 24. So this is 24 plus 25, not 25 minus 24. Don't make that mistake, and a lot of people do. Well, that becomes 49. And so your answer is plus or minus 7. Back up here, do the next one, get rid of that. How do I hit delete? There. Okay, same setup. Fill it in again, this time with new numbers for number 22. Negative 4 squared is going to be positive 16. Any number squared is going to be a positive number. Minus 4 times 3 is negative 12, and you still have to do times 5. So you're doing 16 minus 12 times 5. Well, 12 times 5 is 60, so you're doing 16 times negative 60. Well, that's going to give you a negative number down here, negative 44. So again, undefined. You're taking the square root of a negative, and that's your answer to 22. It's undefined, or no roots. All right. This time I'm going to do just one question, number 27, but notice that it asks for plus and minus. On the left side I'll do plus, on the right side I'll do minus. This question is asking you to use a calculator. Different calculators have different instructions. So at the beginning here on the left, on the left I'm going to do the instructions for the Casio calculator. Or, the Casio. That was the one that does have parentheses. If your calculator has parentheses, here's how to solve this question. First thing you're going to type in is the parenthesis. Then it's going to be 8 plus 3 times the square root of 2, close your parentheses, divided by, plug in that negative sign, because remember it's supposed to be doing divided by negative 2. So there's a button on your calculator for negative sign, divided by negative 2, and you should get minus 6.12. So double check this. You can hit pause right now if you need to. In fact, you can hit pause anywhere in this video. But make sure you're following these steps if your calculator does have parens. Well, what if your calculator doesn't have parens? Like those little blue calculators that I have up at the front on my desk. In this case, you got to do it in a kind of cockeyed way. And we talked about this in class, but this is a challenge. You can't really work from left to right on this problem because your calculator, if you put in 8 plus 3 times, well, it's going to immediately tell you 24, and it's going to give you a wrong answer, and PEMDAS will get all screwed up. These little blue calculators without parentheses do not do PEMDAS. So unfortunately, you're going to have to do it from what amounts to inside out. It's a little confusing. The weirdest thing to me of all is that you have to hit 2, then square root. You can't do square root 2. So 2 square root equals, and you'll get 1.414. You got to hang on to that and remember it's 1.414 because the next thing you're going to do is 3 times that number. So it's 3 times 1.414. So you got to remember 1.414. And then if you hit times 3, it's going to say equals 4.24. And then again, hang on to that answer. You're doing 8 minus that 4.214. So 8 minus 4.21, I'm sorry, it's 8 minus 4.24 is going to turn out to be 3.76. And then, finally, you don't have to hang on to this. You can just do 3.76, which you already have, divided by, there's a button even on these calculators, plus minus, that will change this to a minus sign. So it's 3.76 divided by negative 2, and your answer should be negative 1.88. All right. We move on, and after this slide here, I'm going to probably end the video and start a new one. But we're going to move on here to lesson 10.1. You're supposed to find the leading coefficient. You're supposed to classify the polynomial by its degree, and you're supposed to also tell how many terms it has. I'm going to do 6, and I'm going to do 9. Starting with number 6 here on the left. I've rearranged number 6 to write it in standard form. I read across from left to right, finding, well, I've got an exponent of 2, but wait, there's an exponent of 4. All right, and that's the biggest one. Okay, so I put that first, 2x to the 4th. Now I go back through. Okay, there's that 2x to the 4th again. Oh, x cubed. I write that down. If you keep doing this process, in standard form, it should be written this way. Largest exponent, 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, then no exponent. Okay, and then I'm supposed to say what these key factors are. Leading coefficient, And degree, okay, well, the leading coefficient is the number out front. Leading coefficient, once it's written in standard form, it's 2. The degree is 4. That's the exponent on that lead term. The number of terms, you just count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can call this a polynomial if you want. The only names that I want you to remember from what we talked about in class are monomial, binomial, and trinomial. Those go for 1 term, 2 terms, and 3 terms. Since this has 5 terms, we don't have a name for it. We'll just call it a polynomial. Actually, I think I'm going to pause the video here and pick up this question on the right in the next video.